don't think I really have the heart to tell him he's going to need a little bit more than just oil. Here's your relook at the McFarlane Toys Twisted Land of Oz, the Tin Man. The McFarlane Monster Series Twisted Land of Oz is a highly detailed limited edition release from McFarlane Toys based on the classic novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It features twisted alternate interpretations of the classic characters. Nothing a little bit of elbow grease I'm sure can't fix up. Before we get a closer look at the McFarlane Toys Twisted Land of Oz, the Tin Man, shall we perhaps take the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands? We shall. As we go ahead and do this right now, I've got, of course, the figure still on his display stand. That's probably the best way, especially for a spindly guy like this who's got a little bit loose in legs. Probably the best way to have the figure displayed. Tin Man, though, is going to stand at about 7.5 inches in height, maybe just a little bit more. That works out, though, to be a figure that's about 19.5 centimeters tall. Sliding in now, the Scarecrow, the previous character that we met on the way to see the wizard. Now, whereas the Tin Man does have a little bit more better stability, Scarecrow had a better looking design, but the design honestly just, I didn't think, translated well to a figure, especially when you always had to worry about things sort of falling off of him. As it is right now, I've kind of got all the crows attached properly, but if anybody coughs and sneezes the wrong way, I'm sure these will just fall right off. Prior to, of course, seeing the Scarecrow, we also met up with Dorothy Gale. Although Dorothy Gale, still blind and bound against her will, she got herself a tiny little munchkin there as well, riding on top of a munchkin. The strange things you'll find in the Twisted Land of Oz. Not too strange of things come include with the Tin Man. The figure does have both his axe and his little canister of oil. Why don't we have a look at those things first, then we'll kind of get to looking at the figure and, of course, his display stand. The little jar of oil, knock on wood, has not broken off with the time that I've actually had all these figures sealed inside of their bagged prisons. The oil may have had a little bit, maybe it was bent just a little bit, but the oil canister as a whole looks pretty good. It's got some age to it. It's got a little bit of yellow there added to the front. He could technically, in theory, hold on to this, as actually his claw opens and closes. Wait, it does? Yeah, it does. The figure does also come included with his axe. Now, I would recommend, if you're looking to get this figure displayed, if you probably already have this figure displayed, you already know, but if you're looking to pick this guy up, the axe would probably be best to go in this hand right here. He just has the hey, that held on better than I was hoping. He has the grip that's designed on this side really clearly is designed more for the axe. In fact, actually, let's go ahead and take the figure off his display stand. Because of the nature of the articulation that they actually packed into this figure, he has the most articulation from the Twisted Land of Oz figures, and we'll kind of talk more about that. The figure does also, of course, include the little cobblestone, the yellow brick road, of course. Let's get ourselves Dorothy Gale's display stand. I did want to show you guys again, like it's not the exact same one. You could take, again, multiples of these, and obviously if you have all the characters, you can attach them together. Now, you can attach it that way. You can also attach it this way as well. Yeah, makes sense? It makes sense, I hope. The pegs, just want to make sure I don't confuse the two. Was this Dorothy's? I think this was Dorothy's. This one actually is probably the most closest to looking like Dorothy's. The Scarecrow's was a little bit different. I'm not going to take the Scarecrow off his display stand. You know he's just going to fall. Of course, you got yourself two pegs right there, here and here. That's going to plug onto the underside. Although he really doesn't have necessarily peg holes on both his feet. If you look at them, actually he only has it on the one side. So obviously there's only one way that that's going to work. Hopefully, though, it's just stand still, stand still. But a nice looking display stand. Still, it's dated on the bottom, hasn't changed at all. It's still 2003, so what, 22 years ago that this line first came out. I don't think I bought it right when they came out. I probably bought it like a year or so later. So I've actually had this in my collection for about 20 to 21 years. Despite that, though, and a few little hiccups along the way with Scarecrow more so, and Dorothy Gale losing her finger, I've actually done pretty well, I think, knock on wood, knock on metal, for actually these figures still staying relatively intact. Picking up, though, the Scarecrow, as mentioned, the figure does have an open and closed claw. How cool is that? What's neat, though, is that if you open up one side, it opens the other side as well. So you don't actually have to keep holding, well, you don't have to grab both sides to open and close the claw. You can also, again, take yourself the little oil canister, fit that sort of around the finger area here. So you can kind of hold it that way. Or you can also just go, again, the route of displaying it like that. Or I guess you could really just put it in between his claw like that. I think for me, I would rather just display it. So it does actually look like he's doing as good of a job as he can with the claw, sort of just having it held like that. And of course, I don't know, what would be the sound? Bloop, 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 would be the sound of oil. Stop that. The figure, again, will go ahead and take his axe. The axe just sort of fits into his hand. A lot easier. I was really surprised how quickly that fit into his hand. And then, of course, you can have the figure displayed that way. Let's take those all out now. Get the axe out first. Now, this is obviously 20-plus-year-old plastic, so obviously, I would say I would tread cautiously. It didn't look like that for a second. I was really treading cautiously, trying to remove the axe. Let's be careful about these things, shall we? For the head sculpt, though, of the Tin Man, everything on this guy has been rusted. What's kind of interesting, though, about him is he isn't just made of tin. He's actually made of corpse. Yeah. Tin Man actually is just a living, kind of dead corpse. I guess kept alive basically, but all the things that are like mechanical on this figure. So like the head sculpt, I don't know why looking at this, it reminds me a little of Jason Voorhees. Maybe perhaps because again, like part of the mask is white. Got like the suggestions of chevrons on the sides. If you were to look actually underneath the mask isn't really removable. I guess you could technically pull that off. I don't think that would be probably a good idea. What you would be seeing though underneath is a decayed corpse. You can actually maybe even see if I get his arm out of the way. So you can see like there's a corpse face underneath. It's got kind of 2 parts Jason Voorhees, 1 part Mad Max. That's a cool looking Tin Man. What's also really neat about Tin Man, though, is there's a lot of movable joints on this guy. Far greater, though, than both Dorothy Gale and the Scarecrow. The fact that you can actually move his arms around, his elbows around, you can actually, this arm moves back and forth. This arm, weird reasons, again, this was one of those things that McFarlane was really known for doing. Even though it would have kind of the idea, okay, I can move his arm this way, right? I would be able to think, I'd expect, I'd be able to move it on this side. No, you can't. Only really one arm moves on this side. The other arm only moves by the elbow. There's some articulation here to the elbow area here. We're kind of not really going to talk too much about that just yet. Leave it with me because we're going to get to that in a second. One thing that's kind of a cool feature too of the Tin Man is that you can open up his chest, sort of like the old fires. Not much really burning inside this fire. It looks like we've got ourselves a decayed heart, maybe a lung. What else is in there? Whatever it is, it's been dead long time ago. I think that's a really cool touch. And another neat touch too is if you look on the back of the figure, he's got himself a tank. Now the tank, I guess, if you're looking at it, looks like it's poisoned. Formaldehyde. Maybe there's something that's just keeping this guy alive. It's also running through a tube, so it's running from here all the way. Maybe it's just well, I guess this would be attached to the back of his body. This looks like it's basically just being fed right into his torso. Maybe that's the thing that's keeping his heart beating. Is it beating? It's like Mr. Burns' heart. Remember when Mr. Burns fell in love and his heart just went pff, pff? It's probably, I'm sure, what the Tin Man's doing right now. But that's a really cool feature, though. Overall, like, it's a really neatly sculpted figure. It's not symmetrical at all, either. He's got a kind of very Spawn-inspired larger boot down below here. A little bit more narrower of a boot. But lots of cool colors are added to this. You got some blues. You got, again, some rusted, just browns and silvers added in there as well. Things that don't really make much sense. Not that I really know how to keep a living corpse alive. Well, a corpse, you know what, you get the idea. But unfortunately, though, like some of the things that have suffered with Tin Man over the years is like overly developed loose legs. This leg, for example, is super loose. So if you are looking to get this guy loose, not loose with loose legs, but if you're looking to buy this guy loose out of the packaging, so I want to just make sure, first of all, he has all of the accessories. You also want to really make sure that he does also have somewhat tight joints. Now, I'm sure I could probably go in there and tighten up the joint, make the leg a little bit tighter. Yeah, this one leg is pretty bad. The other leg isn't so bad, but you got to keep in mind, again, like this guy's 20 plus years. And even then, I've had him 20 plus years sitting inside of a bag. So he's had quite the ordeal. Hopefully now that I've given this guy a new light, given a new review, maybe, you never know, I might actually have these guys now on display. For the Tin Man's articulation, the one thing I kind of really wish this guy could have had was a ball joint in his head. I know that's asking really a lot for a figure that's 2 decades old. But with his head being low like this, you can't really get the full experience of what this guy would look like under the mask. With it being down like this, I would love to be able to tilt this up so he'd actually be looking straight up. But unfortunately, the head is always going to be angled down. For his arm, one arm moves forward and back. It only really moves about that far back and about that far forward. Don't push Lady Luck any further than that. If you do, you're probably going to be snapping the arm. That looks to be as far as the arm's going to be able to go. He also has just all this cool sculpting here. Now, this elbow pad does move technically back and forth. The elbow does move just a little bit as well, but not a lot for me to be able to say, like, bend it at a 90-degree angle bend. That would be stupidity on my part. but it does bend a little bit, and when it does actually bend, this piston moves in and out as well. He does no articulation here where you can rotate the wrist. However, though, again, we can open and close the claw. No waist articulation. This arm is stuck. I mean, it's basically just molded to the rest of his body. You can, however, for reasons unknown, only really move his elbow. And check out the detailing, though, on just this elbow alone. It looks like he's got a spike. Maybe he even uses these as weapons. This doesn't move at all, but it kind of looks like where there's a groove right here, maybe you'd be able to fit something in there. Maybe, like, could you take the axe? Let's try the axe. Maybe the axe would fit in there. Oh, maybe it does. You can slide it sort of in there. Maybe you can use it as a weapon that way. It does kind of look like there's a little, if I get my finger out of the way, there's almost like a little ledge right there. Maybe you could take yourself the axe and wedge it in there. I don't know if you saw that for a second, but there was actually a little piece of plastic that broke off. Maybe it's telling me, don't do what you're doing right now. Does it fit in there? Barely. Barely. I don't really think it's supposed to be in there. No hand articulation. The legs don't really move forward and back, so don't try to budge them. They do split out, however, though. So again, he's got some really strange articulation. Just with the looseness of these legs, I get a little worried about obviously moving a figure that is this old. He's got some knee articulation on this side. He's got this ankle actually moves forward and back. You can also move it up and down as well. But again, well, I already stated the obvious. This leg also does move forward and back. The thing that's kind of also cool about this foot is that you can also hinge this out. So you can see what the foot would look like, or the leg would look like underneath. Just do it only with a little amount, though. Don't move it all the way out, because it might actually snap the joint on the back. And you can see there's the hinge right there. It's a really fun figure. It's one of those figures, though, like I said this, I think, with Scarecrow, too. That you pick up a figure like this, you can look at it, and you could spend just a really long time moving and spinning the figure around, seeing details that you never really saw before. And that's one of the things that really made the 2000s, the early 2000s McFarlane line so very interesting, in that you could go in and pick up a figure like this. Yes, you would lose the fact that these figures don't have any articulation. With the Tinman, actually, he has what seems to be so far the most articulation. That could possibly change, though, when we look at the Cowardly Lion. Bringing in then the other examples, there's Dorothy Gale, carefully sliding in the Scarecrow. And here's the Scarecrow as well. If anybody has been following along The Wizard of Oz, know the story quite well. Up next, obviously, Dorothy Gale is then going to come across the Cowardly Lion. The Cowardly Lion is also a really neat-looking figure. I'm looking forward to picking that one. Well, not looking forward to picking that one. I already have picked up that one. Looking forward to having a look at that in the upcoming review. Yeah, the Tin Man, though, while having a little loose in legs, he certainly has more interesting features to him. The fact that you can open and close his chest, the fact he does have an open and closing claw, and that he also has some accessories. Of course, an axe and himself a little oil. I think he's probably going to need a little bit more oil, judging by the state that he's currently in. I got to be honest, I really wasn't looking forward to getting these guys back out of the bags. They've been sitting in bags for probably the last several years. To be expected, though, I was thinking I was going to be pulling out some of these figures and finding loose plastic pieces broken inside the bottom of the bag. Tin Man actually fared a lot better than I was expecting. There are a few things as you're looking at right now, even on the back of his leg. Those could all be potentially broken. And yet, though, Tin Man, for the most part, remained pretty unscathed. Yes, he does have still loose legs. That's something, though, with just the design of the legs, that's going to happen over time. But the hinge that he has on the boot, also the little hinge for the door in the front of his heart, those have all still remained, knock on metal, generally pretty good. I wish the same could be said for Scarecrow. Scarecrow is just a mess. I mean, yeah, Tin Man, though, does look like a decayed corpse. That's probably one of the coolest things I like about the figure. He isn't my favorite, but he's pretty close to the top. I think the Cowardly Lion probably is still one of my favorite figures from the Twisted Land of Oz. Probably then Dorothy Gale. Right after that is the old Tin Man here. Bottom of the list, I would still say it's Scarecrow, just by the fact that function was later to the form. He looks good, but he's just, again, a big straggly mess. If you've already seen my review of the Scarecrow, you probably already know that for yourself. Now, again, I don't think Tin Man really did get a variant. I know Dorothy did get one. I think also the Cowardly Lion. But I think the Tin Man and Scarecrow were both figures that were only released in regular versions. I don't think there's another one that you can try to track down. Speaking of tracking down, even though we are going to be looking at all the remaining line of the Twisted Land of Oz, the one, though, that will be omitted is unfortunately the Flying Monkeys. I looked online just to see what the prices were going for the Flying Monkeys. You can't see it right now, but I was basically nodding my head. In fact, actually, I probably put my hands up to my head and I just thought to myself, There's no way I can justify picking those up. It may change, but right now it isn't. What do you guys think of Tinman? Let me know down below in the comment section. A pretty cool looking figure. Does he show his age? That's one rather interesting thing I'd like to ask you guys as well. Do these figures show their age? Keeping in mind, they're 20-plus-year-old figures. Does this look like a figure that came out 20 years ago? Let me know what you think of it. If you guys also did enjoy this video, do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. As we continue closer to the wizard, up next, we're going to be seeing the Cowardly Lion. I just hope he's not going to rip my arm off. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.